On a frigid Christmas Eve in 2005, the city of Chicago seemed wrapped in a silent, snowy hush. Streetlights cast golden halos onto the white-blanketed sidewalks, and the distant sounds of laughter and music drifted from warm, bustling homes. Yet, amid the swirling snowflakes and the festive glow, a solitary figure trudged through the night. A 7-year-old boy named Ethan. Ethan's small frame was hunched against the biting cold, his breath fogging the air in quick, shallow bursts. He wore a thin jacket, a knitted scarf that had seen better days, and sneakers whose cracked soles let in every ounce of slush and chill. In his reddened hands, he clutched a tattered teddy bear, its brown fur matted, one glass eye missing, and a small red heart sewn into its ear, a secret token of love from a mother he could barely remember. Every step was an act of determination. Ethan's sneakers slipped on icy patches, and the snow soaked through to his socks. He ignored the sting in his toes, the ache in his fingers. He pressed forward, guided by a single hope, that somewhere in this vast city, his mother was waiting for him. Just hours earlier, Ethan had slipped quietly from his foster home. The Wilsons, his latest guardians, were kind but distant, their politeness a constant reminder that he was not truly theirs. They had been busy preparing for Christmas, family arriving, food in the oven, laughter echoing down the hallway. Ethan had overheard Mrs. Wilson on the phone explaining to a social worker that after the holidays, they'd need to find Ethan a new placement. Their son was coming home from college, and Ethan's room would be needed. The words had landed like cold stones in Ethan's stomach. He had stood in the hallway, clutching his teddy bear, listening as the only home he'd known in months slipped away. It wasn't the first time. 4 foster families in 3 years. Each one a temporary stop on a journey he didn't understand. None of them felt like home. None of them felt like his mother. But Ethan remembered fragments. Her smile, the scent of her perfume, the warm embrace that made him feel safe. He remembered afternoons spent at a small cafe, coloring at a corner table while she worked. And he remembered the teddy bear, a birthday gift, its red heart sewn lovingly into its ear. "So you'll always know you're loved," she had whispered. After she disappeared, the world had become a blur of strangers, unfamiliar rooms, and unanswered questions. The authorities had told him she'd gone away for a while, but no one had explained why. Ethan had cried himself to sleep for months, holding the teddy bear close, searching for comfort in its worn fur. It was only recently that Ethan had noticed the name Moretti's embroidered on the bear's foot. He pressed his fingers to the faded thread, turning the word over and over in his mind. The memory came back in a rush. The cafe where his mother had worked, the place where he'd last felt at home. If he could find Moretti's, maybe he could find her. Maybe he could go home. The snow thickened as Ethan wandered through the city, asking hurried strangers if they knew where Moretti's cafe was. Most barely glanced at him, their arms full of shopping bags, their minds on holiday plans. A few stopped, concern flickering in their eyes. But Ethan was too afraid to let them help. He didn't want to go back to the Wilsons, to be handed off again. He wanted his mother. His fingers grew numb, his teeth chattered uncontrollably. But he pressed on, the teddy bear his only companion. The city's lights blurred in the falling snow, and the world felt impossibly large. By 8 o'clock, Ethan found himself near Millennium Park, his strength waning. He sat on a bench, pulling his knees to his chest, hugging the teddy bear tightly. Tears welled in his eyes, not just from the cold, but from the weight of loneliness, of hope fading with each passing hour. Officer Sarah Chen was finishing her shift when the call came. A child, alone in the snow near the park. She'd seen too many stories like this. Children lost, abandoned, or searching for something they couldn't name. As she drove through the quiet streets, she thought of her own daughter at home, probably arranging cookies for Santa, safe and warm. She found Ethan shivering on the bench, his lips tinged blue, his eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. She approached gently, kneeling beside him, offering her coat and a soft voice. Ethan looked up, tears tracking down his cheeks, and told her about his search for Moretti's cafe, about the mother he hoped to find. Officer Chen's heart ached as she listened. She wrapped her coat around his shoulders and led him to her patrol car, promising warmth and safety. As they drove to the station, Ethan stared out the window, scanning the city for any sign of the cafe, hope flickering in his chest. At the station, Officer Chen brought Ethan hot chocolate and a sandwich. He ate slowly, never letting go of the teddy bear. She called the Wilsons, who were frantic with worry, and then her partner, Officer Mike Ramirez, to help with the growing idea forming in her mind. That night, while the city celebrated Christmas Eve, Ethan slept in a small room at the station. Officer Chen had brought him a blanket from home and left a small wrapped package by his pillow. "Merry Christmas, Ethan," she whispered, tucking him in. As dawn broke on Christmas Day, sunlight filtered through the blinds. Ethan woke to the quiet hum of the station and the soft weight of the teddy bear in his arms. He unwrapped the package, a chocolate Santa, and a note from Officer Chen, promising she'd be back soon. True to her should, Officer Chen arrived with Officer Ramirez. Their faces were serious, but there was a glimmer of hope in their eyes. They sat with Ethan, explaining what they'd found. Moretti's cafe, they told him, had once been a small Italian restaurant in a neighborhood now transformed by new developments. It no longer existed, but they'd tracked down records, old employment files, and most importantly, a name: Gabriela Martinez. Gabriela had been a single mother, working 2 jobs to support her son. 6 years ago, she'd been in a devastating car accident on her way home from a night shift. She'd spent months in a coma, her identity uncertain, her documentation incomplete. By the time she woke, Ethan had already been placed in foster care, lost in the system. Despite her efforts, rehabilitation, paperwork, endless meetings with social workers, she'd been unable to find him. But she had never stopped searching. Officer Ramirez showed Ethan a photo. A woman with dark hair, a gentle smile, and eyes that mirrored his own. "Is this your mom?" he asked softly. Ethan stared at the screen, memories rushing back. He nodded, tears streaming down his cheeks. 2 hours later, a taxi pulled up outside the station. Officer Chen held Ethan's hand as they waited. When Gabriela stepped out, a little thinner, a little older, a scar above her eyebrow, her eyes locked onto Ethan's. She dropped to her knees, arms open, tears streaming down her face. Ethan ran to her, the teddy bear squished between them as they embraced. The world seemed to pause, the snow falling softly around them as mother and son were reunited at last. The journey wasn't over. There were forms to fill, court hearings to attend, supervise visits to arrange. But Officer Chen had already contacted a family law attorney willing to help them pro bono. The first most important step had been taken. They were together. 6 months passed. Ethan moved into his mother's small apartment. The judge, moved by their story and the love that had survived years of separation. Gabriella worked as an assistant manager at a restaurant, saving for the future. Ethan thrived. Therapy, school, and most of all, the steady, unconditional love of his mother. On the anniversary of their reunion, they invited Officers Chen and Ramirez for dinner. Ethan showed them his bedroom, his schoolwork, and the teddy bear, now resting on a special shelf, a symbol of hope and perseverance. Gabriella shared her new dream. She was taking night classes to become a paralegal, determined to help other families navigate the system that had nearly kept her from her son. "I want to make sure no other child has to search the streets on Christmas Eve to find their mother," she said, her eyes shining with resolve. Officer Chen watched Ethan, no longer the lost, shivering boy on a snowy bench, but a confident, happy child, surrounded by love. Sometimes the system failed, she reflected, but sometimes, with persistence, courage, and a little Christmas magic, it could be redeemed. Years later, Ethan would keep the teddy bear on his shelf, a reminder of the journey that brought him home. When people asked about it, he would tell them about a boy who refused to give up, a mother who never stopped searching, and the kindness of strangers who helped them find their way back to each other. In the end, it was not just a story of loss, but of hope, a testament to the power of love, determination, and the belief that even in the darkest winter, the light of home can be found.